In the beginning, God created a perfect world. Everything in it was good. Adam and Eve lived in harmony with God, in a paradise called the Garden of Eden. They were given everything they needed: fruit, animals, and the beauty of creation. God told them that they were free to eat from any tree in the garden, except one, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He warned them, "If you eat from it, you will surely die." For a time, Adam and Eve lived in peace, enjoying the garden, walking with God, and fulfilling the purpose He had given them. But one day, the serpent, a creature more cunning than any other animal, approached Eve. It questioned the command of God, saying, "Did God really say that you must not eat from any tree in the garden?" Eve responded, "We can eat from the trees in the garden, but God told us not to eat from the tree in the middle of the garden, and we must not touch it or we will die." The serpent, full of deceit, denied God's warning. "You will not die," he said. "God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." Eve considered the serpent's words. The tree looked so appealing. Its fruit seemed good for food, beautiful to look at, and promising wisdom. She believed the serpent's lie and took the fruit from the tree. She ate it, and then she gave it to Adam, who was with her. He too ate. In that moment, everything changed. Their eyes were opened, but not in the way they had expected. They suddenly realized that they were naked and felt ashamed. They tried to cover themselves with fig leaves, but nothing could erase the guilt that flooded their hearts. As the day drew to a close, Adam and Eve heard the familiar sound of God walking in the garden. But instead of rushing to meet Him, they hid among the trees, ashamed and afraid. God called out to them, "Where are you?" Adam responded, his voice trembling, "I heard you in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, so I hid." God asked, "Who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree I commanded you not to eat from?" Adam's heart sank. He knew he had disobeyed. He looked at Eve and then spoke, "The woman you put here with me, she gave me some fruit from the tree and I ate it." God turned to Eve, asking, "What is this you have done?" Eve, feeling the weight of her choice, replied, "The serpent deceived me and I ate." God, in His justice, pronounced judgment. He began with the serpent, saying, "Because you have done this, you are cursed above all animals. You will crawl on your belly and eat dust all your days. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." Then God spoke to Eve. He told her that while she would still experience the joy of motherhood, it would be with great pain, and her relationship with her husband would be marked by a struggle for dominance. Turning to Adam, God said, "Because you listened to your wife and ate from the tree I commanded you not to eat from, the ground is cursed because of you. Through painful toil you will eat from it all your life. It will produce thorns and thistles, and by the sweat of your brow you will eat your food until you return to the ground. For from it you were taken. For dust you are, and to dust you will return." In the midst of this, however, God showed mercy. Though Adam and Eve had sinned and disobeyed, God made a promise. A descendant of Eve would one day come to crush the serpent's head, to defeat the evil that had entered the world. This was a glimmer of hope, a promise of redemption. God also made garments of skin for Adam and Eve to cover their shame, showing His compassion even in the face of their failure. Finally, God drove Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden, placing cherubim and a flaming sword to guard the way to the tree of life. They could no longer live in the paradise that God had created for them, but the promise of salvation, though distant, was already set in motion. Adam and Eve left the garden, knowing that they had lost their innocence and the intimate relationship they once had with God. The world, once perfect, was now changed forever. Yet in their hearts, the hope of God's promise lingered, the hope that one day, all things would be made right again. This story of Genesis 3 shows the consequences of disobedience, but it also reveals the first hint of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Through one act of rebellion, sin entered the world, but through God's mercy and His promise, a way would be made for humanity to be reconciled to Him once more. If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe to keep the channel growing.